So, Berto, this is Chapter 4 in our deep dive on the psychology of Jodi Arias. Let's get into it. What do you say?
Let's do it.
This is the Psychology in Seattle podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Kirk Honda, a therapist and a professor.
My name is Humberto Castañeda, and I am a hug trainer.
A hug trainer?
Yeah, I help people give better hugs.
I don't think you're the most qualified person to give those kind of classes.
The people that know do. The people that don't teach.
So, Berto, this is Chapter 4 in our deep dive on the psychology of Jodi Arias.
The epic.
And what we're doing is with each chapter, we're going to have an initial portion that is free for everyone. And then the second portion will be for patrons of the podcast, because I've been spending so much time on this that I feel like I want to reward those people who give me the ability to spend so much time on such a topic.
Give back some value.
Yeah. So let's just start where we left off last time with Chapter 3. And we just got done talking about stalking, her stalking of him, and just how extensive it was.
Yeah.
I think I said something like, if there are 20 different signs of stalking, she had 21 of them. And we also talked about how to protect yourself from stalking and why people stalk. You talked about how you, in essence, kind of behaved like a stalker with your current wife when you were first dating her, how there
were stalker patterns, basically.
You didn't like that there was a guy that she was hanging out with that was just a friend. And so you called him on the phone and acted like you were doing a survey.
You
called him on the phone and acted like you were giving a survey as a way of trying to intimidate him or scare him or something. And you were 20 at the time or something. And we talked about how for you, you're not a psychopath. And the reason why people will stalk is because of the deep attachment needs and traumas. It doesn't justify it, of course. It's still criminal behavior. But understanding it gives us better understanding. It also gives us a way to curb that kind of behavior or prevent it. So the next part of the story we are now in is they're in a zone of their relationship, Jodi and Travis, where they're officially broken up, but they are occasionally seeing each other. And he is starting to date other people. So at this point, she wrote that in her diary that she was seriously thinking about suicide. So with borderline personality disorder, which was eventually applied to her by a psychologist that evaluated her during the trial, it is often considered one of the manipulative tactics is to use suicidal threats. And it certainly can be, but it usually is genuine. The reason why with people with borderline are often framed as being manipulative is because if you are the target of that, like, I don't know if Jodi did this, but it wouldn't be beyond the realm of possibility that she really wanted Travis back because they fell in love. They had this 5-month intense relationship, and we hypothesized that maybe she had a lot of abandonment, betrayal traumas growing up, and so she was, having that trauma triggered for her. And so she really wants him back. And, she's in love, so there's nothing wrong with wanting someone that you're in love with to be in a relationship with you. So there's some normalcy to that. And she starts to feel very sad and very hurt, very betrayed, very demoralized. So in that situation, it's very common for people to become suicidal, meaning that they don't know any other way out. They don't know any other way to solve the problem. They're in pain and they try lots of different things. And we also know through research that a major factor in suicidal thoughts and behavior is what we call thwarted belongingness. Meaning you want to belong, but you're being thwarted from getting that.
Although I can totally see, especially in her case, but it being both. It's a manipulative tactic and it can be real. In fact, kids do this a lot. I remember being a child and thinking, stuff like self-destructive stuff, like, fine, then I'll just, whatever, I'll just burn my book, or I'll just destroy this thing just to show them, right? You probably do feel like the feeling of destroying is probably real, and you're also trying to spite or manipulate or whatever. And so in this extreme case, that thought, I could see it brewing like, fine, I guess I'll just kill myself. And I really do want to, but I'm also trying to manipulate.
Yeah. Or I'm trying to emphasize how important this person is to me, or I'm doing everything I can to prevent myself from killing myself, or I'm trying to do anything I can to get this person back. So from the outside, it looks manipulative and it feels manipulative, and you could argue it is manipulative, but it's not like the person wakes up and says, haha, I have borderline personality disorder. I'm going to lie and say I'm suicidal as a way of trying to manipulate other people.
It's not like she probably called him and said, listen, I know we've been going through some struggles, but I have to tell you something. I really am honestly feeling a bit suicidal. I need to do something about it. Maybe you could help me. It's not, I'm imagining that wasn't the conversation.
Right, exactly.
It was probably more like, I got to tell you, if you leave me, I'm probably going to kill myself.
Yeah. Yeah. And the classic is you'll get a text saying, I need to talk to you. And you're like, again. You just ignore it. You just ignore it because you've been drawing all these boundaries. You've said we're broken up. I can't talk with you anymore.
And it's always at 11 anyways when they contact you. It's always an emergency.
Yeah. And then at 2 a.m, you get a text that it's like, I just don't know what to do anymore.
Right.
And then you don't reply. And then they're like, well, I guess you don't care about my life. And you don't reply. And then they say, well, I guess this is goodbye because I'm going to kill myself unless you call or something. And again, they could be serious and they could be in a serious emotional state due to their traumas and possible ancillary depression to this. And at the same time, like you said, they're also trying to get the person back. So around this time, she moves from Arizona back to California because remember, she moved. They broke up.
Close to him.
She moved to be close to them and started cleaning his house and was stalking him, showing up at under his Christmas tree. That kind of thing.
It's just such a never a good sign when the person who you broke up with, who lives states away, moves right next to you.
Yeah. Now, people listening to this might recall or know that Travis was occasionally still having sex with her.
Yeah.
And we don't know what state of mind he was in. He could have been exploiting her desperation, using her, so to speak. He could have been terrified and just trying to placate her because presumably it wasn't just sex, it was also meeting up and talking. He could have been confused at times, like, well, maybe this will work. He also could have been thinking, well, if we just meet up one last time and I convince her to move on, she'll stop stalking me. It's just hard to know.
And we have some signals. For example, one of the last times we talked about how the friends caught on way sooner, right, than him, to the point where they were like, she's not allowed back here. You know, like when your roommates have to set that rule for you, there's definitely a big disconnect, right? So we know that in some ways he was in denial. But then we have the anecdote later where he's like, yeah, if I'm dead one day, don't be surprised. And then to your point, is there terror inside of him? Is there sort of like resignation? Is there, it's confusion of like, but what do I do? If I say no, then she'll kill me.
Or kill herself. Guilt. He could have been feeling guilty that, well, what do I do? And there's not a lot of resources out there, I think, particularly for men in this situation. I mean, for anyone. But the idea that men are even stalked by women is, for some people, just impossible. Yeah. So he probably just, it's just hard to know what was going through his head.
And by the way, and the carrot in this case isn't a trivial carrot. It is, sexuality is one of the most important things for humans, especially in that age. And he's in a situation where he's denying himself for religious reasons. So there's a big carrot.
Yeah, so to speak. So they both start dating other people. She appears to be kind of moving on. Yeah. He starts dating Mimi and Lisa, and presumably, I guess, trying to find a wife. At this point, he's starting to blog about how he wants to settle down after having his 20s, flirting and having casual relationships. She starts to date Ryan Burns, another Mormon in Salt Lake City, maybe as a way of trying to recreate the past relationship or make him jealous. I don't know. But Travis and Jodi keep talking on the phone. And at this point, she's recording their conversations, including phone sex. Hard to know why. Why do you think what are the possible theories as to why she would record their conversations and them having sex?
Some ideas are, one, she wants to have them for herself because it reminds her of being close to him or maybe her power over him or something. Two, she might be looking to not blackmail, maybe with the church or something, actually. She might be looking to do that. Third, it might just be a kink, like she likes recording herself.
Yeah, it's not a stretch to believe that she would use it for blackmail.
Yeah.
Because she was showing up at this point at the houses of the women that he was dating.
Right.
There was a woman named Lisa that I don't know if they have direct evidence, but they have strong evidence that she was stalking her as well and following Travis when he would go to their house. And on 2 occasions, allegedly, Jodi slashed his tires while his car was parked at her house.
Yeah. So if he's like, well, okay, we're done. It's like, okay, well, I have a very interesting set of things to show your church.
Right. Someone who, and it'd be one thing if Jodi just stood outside in her car, sobbing, watching. It's another thing that she would go up to the house and look in the window. She would knock on the window to try to scare and intimidate Lisa. She would knock on the door and run away, slashing the tires on 2 occasions. Like, this is someone who is showing a pattern of aggression and hostility and criminality.
And knowing what we know now, those women must have been so frightened to think that they could have been killed viciously.
Yeah. In fact, I think some people believe that that's what she was intending on doing, that she was intending on going back not to kill Travis, but to kill whoever Travis was seeing. So at this point, they are continuing to fight. There are chat logs of them having these really long, drawn-out fights. We are now in 2008, and Travis told friends that Jodi and him were going on a trip to Cancun in June.
Right.
So this shows that Travis is still thinking he's involved with Jodi.
Yeah, he's in denial for sure.
And is publicly stating as well.
Why would he tell? Yeah, that one's also confusing. You would think it'd be like, if he were thinking he was going to do that, he'd be hiding it from his friends.
Well, the Cancun trip was a prepaid legal convention trip, I believe. So it'd be hard to hide that, given that I think she worked there.
They would see him. They see her there.
Also, I think it's just hard to know week to week where Travis was. Sometimes he was drawing a boundary. Sometimes they were fighting. Sometimes he was having sex. Maybe sometimes he thought together. Sometimes he was dating Lisa. Sometimes he's dating me.
Yeah.
I just think he's...
Well, and I've seen it before with friends who have these toxic relationships, and it doesn't matter what you tell them. All of a sudden you find out that they're getting married.
Right.
You're like, oh, wait, what?
Yeah. It's just hard to know where he was. But early 2008, we see that he's still... the pendulum swinging is still going back and forth. April, though, he changed his trip to include a friend instead, Mimi, and not Jodi. He was really pursuing Mimi. He really wanted to be with Mimi. Mimi reportedly was saying she just wanted to be friends. She didn't want to be with him. And by the way, he never went on this trip, and we'll get into that later. There are texts between the two of them indicating fighting and some sort of sexual relationship.
Okay. I misunderstood. I actually, for some reason, had it in my mind that the trip was supposed to happen, but he died before he could go on the trip.
That is.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, what do you think I meant?
No, just now it made it sound like the trip came and went and he didn't go on it.
Yeah. He died just before, just days before.
Right. Which is, I always thought in my mind, she was so upset that she was supposed to be going.
Right.
And she got replaced.
Right. So I'll get to that in a second. March, reportedly, there's a shift in her journal from... might we say in the borderline personality lingo, from idealization to devaluation. She might have started, at this point, her plan to do something drastic.
Devaluation, what does it mean in that context?
So with people with borderline, for the most part, and there's a lot of different profiles, and of course there's a lot of different types in that. There are some people that have been through treatment. There are some people who have a lot of self-awareness. There are some people who don't. There are different degrees, blah, blah, blah. But generally speaking, people with borderline are really typified by having abandonment and betrayal traumas, and also some amount of arrested development regarding black and white thinking in a variety of contexts, including attachments. Okay. So for a child, for example, when they're 2 years old, their parents are just wonderful all the time. But if you cross a 2-year-old, they hate you.
Right.
From the bottom of their soul.
Right.
They hate you. And then that'll pass, and then they love you. And it's black and white.
Right.
You're either idealized in their eyes, or
you're the worst thing
or devalued is the word.
I see. That's what the devaluation is.
Yeah. So that is retained into adulthood for people with borderline because of trauma and disposition in all likelihood. And so with attachments, they will do that. And it looks as though she was idealizing him for a long time, fighting to be in the relationship, really trying to get him back, obsessing about him, crossing a lot of boundaries, but determined to get back with him. Then,
so if someone is normally treating you nicely and kind of maybe even thinks highly of you, and then all of a sudden they start sending you long-winded emails about how terrible everything about you is that, have you been devalued?
Are you trying to diagnose someone right now?
Yeah. No, but it sounds like that in a little bit, like, right, like you these swings between, like, maybe not the child example, but definitely like you're a totally legit person in my worldview, to you're the worst thing in my worldview.
I mean, it depends. If we just see that, it could be the result of a lot of things.
Yeah.
But it is a red flag for that, particularly if it's a pattern and it's intense.
Yeah.
You'd also have to see the idealization. If someone's just treating you normally, as the way a lot of people would, and then suddenly they devalue you, it doesn't necessarily mean borderline, but it could. Anyway, so in the journal, previous to this shift in March, it was a lot of, we're meant for each other, I love him, I want him back, da-da-da. And then after this point in time, it's a lot of negativity about him. And I would hypothesize that this is when the seed was planted for something that she wanted to do, potentially even literally, I'm going to kill him.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to kill someone in his life, or I'm going to kill someone. So that is possible. I don't know that. And they continue to occasionally talk and occasionally have sex beyond this point, but I think it might have had a different feel to it given her shift. From the public, there's lots of victim blaming on him because of it. Once it all came out, everyone was saying, why did he keep having sex with her? He should have drawn a boundary with her. He's just as crazy as she is, that sort of thing. What do you think about that, Berto?
That's completely unfair. I mean, don't get me wrong. If we were talking about normal dynamics of a relationship without a murder in the mix or extreme stalking in the mix, I would say, if I were talking to this person, I'd say, like, yeah, you know what? I think you're being unfair to yourself and to this other person. This isn't healthy for you in whatever number of ways, examples I could give, if I'm a friend especially. And it's certainly causing some stress to the other person. I think the best, fairest thing to do is to end it. I know it sucks. You're not going to get as much sex or whatever, but I mean, let's balance things out. That would be my advice. So I would definitely say, are you stringing this person along? Yeah. Are you, setting her up for more hurt later? Yes. Are you setting yourself up for bad? And that's all without the murder in the mix, right? With the murder in the mix, it'd be a different situation. I would certainly not say, like, hey, listen, you're setting yourself up to maybe be killed. And if you do get killed, you deserve it because you were being like this. It's more like, hey, listen, this person's unstable and it's dangerous.
Yeah.
And you need to maybe even file a restraining order, whatever.
Right.
So no, it would definitely never be about, well, I hate to tell you, I warned you, so I guess you had it coming.
Right. Could someone legitimately say to him, if we were alive, look, all the suffering you're experiencing in terms of the fighting and having to deal with her and your life kind of being in limbo and it's hard to move on to actually seriously dating other women, are you partially to blame for that? You could say that.
Of course.
But to say that the fact that she was stalking him, committing crimes, terrifying him, and killing him is because of his behavior. No, that's completely victim blaming. That's like blaming a woman for being raped because of the way she was dressed.
Hey, you didn't need to help that man with the cast on his arm with his VW bug at the beach,
Right. At Lake Sammamish, just down the hill from both of us, actually.
Yeah.
So May 26, 2008, there is some report of them having a big fight over the phone on May 26th. Speculation, I'm guessing that she was pleading with him to not go to Mexico with another woman because the trip was in a week or two. And she interpreted him going to Mexico with Mimi because later she told the police that Travis told her that Mimi might be, quote unquote, the one.
Yeah, right.
For Travis, he was pretty open about this sort of thing. He might have even been telling Jodi this to try to push her away. I don't know. They had an open relationship in this way, I suppose.
Well, and I could even imagine, based on the compromises that Jodi had been making to try to still be with him, that she might have been giving off an air of like, oh, you could tell me everything. You know, I'm your friend, right? And then he's like, oh, well, let me tell you. Actually, this girl's pretty neat. I think she might be the one. Which, of course, underneath, it's killing Jodi inside.
Right.
Also, one question. Do you know, was Jodi going to go anyways because of work, or was she no longer employed with that? Do you know?
I don't know,
okay.
But she was not able to go, or she wasn't qualified to go, maybe because he was more in the upper management.
So there might have also been some sort of definitely social embarrassment for her of like, well, now, you know, I'm also not going, and everyone's going to know that I'm not going. I don't know.
Right. And humiliation worries is a pretty major motivator for these kinds of crimes. So, yeah, I hadn't thought of that. So, she knows that Mimi is the one. Now, what she doesn't know is, I'm guessing, is that Mimi didn't want to be with him and had told him many times, but Travis was either still pursuing her or was okay with just being friends with Mimi. Now, also on May 26, it's possible, total speculation, that she blackmailed him with the sex tape. That she said something like, you know, you could imagine that she would have pulled out but before she kills him, you imagine she would have pulled out all the stops.
Although, which you're probably right, but it is a little puzzling that he then would have let her film them having sex that last time.
Yeah.
Because he would have been like, well, no, you just tried to blackmail me. I'm not going to give you more footage.
Well, it's his camera, though, so he knows he has control over it. The pictures, that was his camera.
Right.
So he doesn't know he's going to get murdered.
I see, yeah. Fair enough.
So again, seemingly at this point, probably in all likelihood, she definitely decided that she was going to kill him at this point. Because 2 days later, May 28th, Jodi lived with her grandparents, and the house that Jodi and her grandparents lived in was burgled. The speculation is that Jodi was the one who burglarized the house, and among various missing objects was a .25 caliber handgun, which apparently is a rare type of handgun. You know, normally you will have a 22 or a 9mm or, you know, that kind of thing. So a .25 caliber handgun is kind of an older concealable weapon that people don't usually buy anymore because it doesn't have very good stopping power, from what I understand. So let's take a break here, Berto. And when we get back from the break, what I want to do is I want to go literally minute by minute or hour by hour of what happens from June 2nd through June 4th, which there's so much data to go over and so many theories. There are some definite things that we can say about what happened here around the murder, but there's just a lot of details because I fully nerded out on, I went down some rabbit holes. I looked at a lot of theories online, and there's just so much to get into. But like we were saying earlier, the rest of this podcast will just be for patrons of the podcast. So if you want to listen to the rest of this and all the other full chapters of the Jodi Arias deep dive that we're doing, you got to go to patreon.com, become a patron. Do it now.
Do it now.